Franklin Delano Roosevelt, do solemnly swear.
I, Dwight D. Eisenhower, do solemnly swear.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution.
The Constitution of the United States. So help me God.
The Constitution of the United States, so help me God. All right, well, so help me God, we're going to do the best we can to listen to God and see what he has to say about all this. If you're first time viewer here, then what we've done in the past is just take the Constitution of the United States and read each one of the articles, the sections, the clauses individually and discuss them. Normally I have 2 or 3 people to help me understand this, because I am no professional at this. I am not all that versed on all of this. But I can read them too and give you my thoughts on them, and at least you'll have a documented series here, video series. Sorry for the lighting. My lighting is really horrible lately, and I haven't been able to perfect that. But anyway, I wanted to start off today. I'm going to put it in the chat. Here what constitutionality is a word. And of course, if you all look at my name here, my name today is constitutionality. Constitutionality is the condition of acting in accordance with an applicable constitution, the status of a law, a procedure, or an act's accordance with the laws or set forth in the applicable Constitution. When one of these directly violates the Constitution, it is unconstitutional. Now, in today's world, and this is July 8th, the year 2020, in today's world, there's a lot of things going on, and one of the 2 words we hear quite often is Constitution. This violates the Constitution, or is unconstitutional, that type of thing. We hear that quite often these days, especially if you watch the news, listen to a news or anything like that, or especially talk shows, worldly talk shows, especially. They will continuously mention the Constitution, because it is set up for us to have a base structure to live by, to run our country by and understand. Now, another thing that I've come across lately, and I have to say, actually last week I apologized to myself, because a lot of this stuff I was taught in high school, but really did not, and I mean, I passed the class and all that, I did really well, but I did not retain hardly any of these understandings of the Constitution, the laws, the United States Code, that type of thing. And I did a lot of research this past week on a couple of those things, because we are on Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. If you want to look that up. And past couple of weeks, we've talked about other subjects that have to do with the ones we're talking about, but also have to do with things that are going on in the world these days. And for instance, like we did one whole show a couple of weeks ago called the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. And you can find that segment, that whole show, on the Messianic Lamb radio website, MessianicLambNetwork.com website. And very good. And then last week we talked about a governor's executive order, which is quite interesting. I find I know so little about what different people in authority in my country, the United States of America. I find so little that I know about what they can do. They do these things, but is it constitutional? Is it unconstitutional? Can they do this? Can they not do this? Yeah, they do it, but so they must know what they're doing, but it doesn't seem right. And once again, we hear in the news and on talk shows, we constantly hear the word constitutional or unconstitutional or all that type of thing. And I find myself wanting for an understanding of these things so that it clarifies what I'm hearing on a regular basis these days. And so anyway, I'm trying to learn, and by the people that come and join me on a regular basis here, their input, and between all of us that maybe don't know all that much about it, I'm working on trying to get a couple of guests in here that maybe can explain a little bit better things that we don't understand. So be patient with us, and sometime, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, I will be able to have a couple of people that know more about this in to help. Now, normally James O'Hare and Abigail O'Hare are with me. They've been with me for a long time on a regular basis now, not since the very beginning, but on a regular basis. And now James, for now at least, cannot join in with us, but we do have Abigail. Let's see if Abigail's, can you, I'm hearing an echo of me still.
You still hear it?
I do when I'm talking. I don't know if you can. It's not real bad. No, it's not as bad as it was, but it sounds like, almost sounds like there's somebody speaking in the background or something. But anyway, we'll be good.
What you sound like, Mark? You sound like somebody, a reporter who's at the Lincoln Monument in Washington when they're talking and they have the echo.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah, we'll just go with that. That's fine. It'll work. But that'll be good. So when, like I say, we've been talking about this. I don't know, Abigail. That may be too much. It's like every time I'm talking, I'm hearing it. So what about muting? Well, you can't mute my speakers. You wouldn't be able to hear what I'm saying, and would you?
You know what? I'll go out and I'll come in again. I'll see if I can.
Okay, let's try that. Let's see if that'll help. Very good. Very good. All right.
See you in a few.
Come right on back in. Okay. And I don't know if Sherry Flanagan's going to join us this morning. She's a regular on the show too. We all have lives that we got to live, and we got to do things. And so anyway, so constitutionality, that is to me the working of all of it. Are you living by the Constitution, or are you not? Are you fighting that? I mean, it's the laws that are set up. Are they set up so that we can understand these things? And where are those laws kept, by the way? Let's ask a couple of questions here. Is the Constitution a set of laws? And I'm finding that no, practically everything starts off with the Congress shall have the power to. And so what it is back in the day when in the 1700s, when they set all this up, that they established these specific, and they're not really so much laws as they are the statutes. They are the statements, the concreteness of our country to establish whether or not the Congress, which is made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate. If you don't really understand how that works, go back and you can go back in our archives, and those are specific in there. They're titled that way so that you can see the history of this and what that all means. What they have the power to do. That was covered in the first articles of the Constitution, and we discovered those at length. And now we are into what the Congress has the power to do. And once again, these are all set up as base standards, so that we can understand, and then understand what they can do and what they can't do. So constitutionality would mean the adhering to that which is set forth in the Constitution. Once again, we'll wait here a minute for Abigail to come back in, and then let me just go back over. So far, we have talked about Article 1, Section 8, the first clause, and I'm going to put in here is a link to my research. And I've found a new one that I like. So my notes are based on what you hear me talk about are going to be based on these websites. So if you want to follow along or go do your own research on any specific article or section that we talk about, you are more than welcome to go take a look at these. I don't know why this is, for some reason, that didn't go through. There we go. And got to get my power going. My orange juice gives me power. Okay. So yeah, those are my notes. That's what I'm using is actually their notes. And in the first clause of Article 1, Section 8, they talked about how the Congress has the power to collect and lay taxes, duties, that type of thing. Very interesting what they can do as far as taxes are concerned. They are the ones that make that distinction. In Clause 2, they have the power to borrow money on the credit of the United States. Well, now is it's funny because the Clause 4 we're going to talk about today has to do with bankruptcy. So, and the United States is in debt, from what I understand. Of course, I haven't seen the books, so I really don't know. But they say that we're in debt, and so. Had they maybe had a little better discussion before they did Article 1, Section 8, Clause 2, which says the Congress has the power to borrow money on the credit of the United States, maybe they just said, no, we can't run this country on the money we have and the resources that we have, then we can't run the country. Boy, I wish all of us would say that. Now, my wife and I have been out of debt for approximately almost 6 years now, and it sure is nice not to have to even consider that type of thing, and whether or not we're going to make it or go bankrupt or any of that kind of stuff is really nice. But the United States, they're pretty much in debt, and just keep getting farther and farther in debt. So I guess, hey, that's actually, once you get to a certain point, man, I don't care. I'm already in debt. What difference does it make, But I think a lot of it is individual people feel the same way. They start borrowing money. It's the American way, and they get so far in debt. It's, hey, what difference does it make from now on anyway? Clause number 3, Article 1, Section 8, the Congress shall have the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations, the several states, and the Indian tribes. This is what we discussed last week, and to me it's interesting because first of all they're talking about borrowing money, and then the next one is to have the power to regulate commerce, not only with foreign nations, the different states together, going from one state to another, and with the Indian tribes. And it's it's like we're going to borrow the money. Now we're going to regulate that money. And then the next thing we're going to come up with is Clause 4A, the first part of Clause 4 in Article 1, Section 8, which says the Congress shall have the power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization. Now, that's the first part. The second part is about the laws of bankruptcies. So let's jump to Clause 4B because it kind of follows in line with what I've just been talking about, and we can jump back because it's interesting. Every once in a while, these articles have the Congress has the ability or has the power to establish, and then they put two things that really don't line up at all, like this one does, which is that of naturalization and that of bankruptcies. Why they couldn't make two different articles or clauses on that, I don't know. It's in the same clause. So we're going to go to Clause B, 4B. The Congress shall have the power to establish uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. Now, what this actually means is Congress has the power to set rules for hopelessly indebted people and businesses to declare bankruptcy. And of course, United States government itself, right, its own self. I have the power to declare this. And so it's interesting because Congress has exercised this authority several times since 1801, including through adoption by the Bankruptcy Reform Act of 1978. In 2005, Congress used that power to change bankruptcy law, including, hold on a second, sorry. Don't do this to me. I'm sorry, I'm moving things around and I messed things up for me. Forgive me, sorry. Okay, Congress has exercised this since 1801. In 2005, Congress used that power to change bankruptcy law. It's now much harder for individuals to escape credit card debts by declaring bankruptcy, and bankruptcy laws help people who can no longer pay their creditors get a fresh start by liquidating assets to pay their debts or by creating a repayment plan. Bankruptcy laws also protect troubled businesses and provide for orderly distributions to business creditors through reorganization or liquidation. Now, that's what it does, but it goes on to say that most cases are filed under the three main chapters of the Bankruptcy Code. Chapter 7, Chapter 11, and Chapter 13. Now, this is where I got real confused because though we've all heard of Chapter 7, you hear somebody, say, I've filed for Chapter 7 or filed for Chapter 13. And it's like, okay, where is that at? We never ask the questions. We just assume that these are things these are laws that are floating out there. These are things that are floating out there that the lawyers know about and the lawmakers in Congress and everybody knows about. But I really never questioned all that to understand where are those. Where is this bankruptcy code? Where is this chapter 13? Where is this chapter 11? I just assumed, I guess it's part of the laws and the laws of the Constitution. Well, come to find out that the Constitution is not really a set of laws. It just tells us how the country is run, what we can do and can't do, what our general operational codes and laws and stuff are for. I'm laxing in words used to describe this, but the Constitution really is just a set of understandings for what we can do in this country and those in authority can do in this country. And then the laws are actually codified, which means to put into an order, which is to set an order, and you can change that order, you can move it around, you can add, subtract. Codify just means putting something in order. And so the United States Code is the official codification of the general and permanent laws of the United States. Now, when I found this out, that's where we get the bankruptcy code from. So in other words, when you're talking chapter 11, chapter 7, chapter 13, this is a part of our United States Code. And that code contains 53 titles. The main edition is published every 6 years by the Office of the Law Revision Council of the House of Representatives, our Congress, a half of our Congress, what our Congress is made up of. And cumulative supplements are published annually. The code was created in 1926. I was actually quite surprised by that. I would have figured that our United States Code, which is the cumulative laws that have been created, federal laws, not state laws, federal laws that have been created since the 1800s, 1700s. The Constitution would have been put together somewhere else and put together, codified, put together in some kind of form. But it's only been since 1926, and they did it to address the need for an updated, authoritative, and useful consolidation. That's the word I was looking for. Consolidation of federal laws. Now, that's finally. So I'm just so surprised that it wasn't actually put together until 1926. Now, so where do they keep this set of laws? Well, I mean, they don't keep any set of laws any specific place, but there in the chat, I just put a link to where you can find this code, the United States Code. What an interesting short name for something, but there it is. So this is, once again, a consolidation of federal laws, and it's updated quite often, but mostly about every 2 years they get together and update it, that type of thing. So doesn't make the laws that are not in the code not unconstitutional, or doesn't make them not of any value. It just means that they haven't been consolidated into this code. Now, it's interesting. The last one I found was 2018. It's a couple of years ago. And it says the main edition is published every 6 years. But from what I understand, it is actually, updated quite often. So anyway, you can do more research on that. Look up the United States Code. It's quite extensive research. You can find on Wikipedia about it. Of course, the Google is packed full of it, that type of thing. So that is where we find the bankruptcy code. It's the only place that I understand that the Constitution talks about bankruptcy is here in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4B. The Congress shall have the power to establish uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout these United States. Now, that's the only place it talks about that. And then you go to the United States Code and you'll find the Bankruptcy Code, Chapter 7, Chapter 11, and Chapter 13. My last note on this is federal courts have exclusive jurisdiction over bankruptcy cases. This means that a bankruptcy case cannot be filed in a state court. So the federal courts are the only ones that regulate this. Now, interesting to me that, like I said before, I was running through what we had talked about before, and in Clause 2 of Article 1, Section 8, was where we're at, they have the power to borrow money, and then Clause 3, they have the power to regulate the money. And then in 4, we better take the other end of it. We have the power to establish laws on bankruptcies. Kind of a progression there. And it's I'm even looking here in Clause 5. We have the power to coin money, regulate the value thereof, and of foreign coin, and standard weights and measures. So Congress is like, when it comes down to money, we can borrow it, we can regulate what we do between the states, we can go bankrupt, and we'll regulate that too. And now we're going to regulate even making the coin. Then Clause 6, Congress shall have the power to provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities in current coin. Isn't that interesting? So we're going to make it, and if you try to copy it, we're going to prosecute you on there. We have the power to do all this. But, they need to have the power. We need to give the power to them, because we have to have somebody do it. Okay, there you go. That's my synopsis of our Congress, the Constitution, and their ability to regulate money. Whether they borrow it or print it themselves, go bankrupt, they have the power, period. Power. Okay, so I'm going to jump back a little bit here to Clause 4A. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4A. The Congress shall have the power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization, which means the Congress has the power to set up a process for immigrants to become American citizens. Isn't this interesting that right from the very beginning, it was the idea that America is a nation of immigrants, and thus embedded right into the Constitution, embedded right in there. so my thought process here, which I'm really not knowing that this is what it is, but when our pilgrims, when our people first came to this country and they knew it was already inhabited, then they must have had some form of understanding that we are immigrants to their country. Interesting, because it's like surely they weren't so arrogant as to just come set foot on the land and say this is our land and look the Indians in the eye and say it's interesting too. I mean, let's dissect that. Where does the word Indians, American Indians, come from? From my understanding, going back to grade school, is that when they first set foot on our land, they thought they were in India. So when they saw the natural people of the land, they called them Indians based on the fact they thought they were in India. So they had to have had the wherewithal to know that this was not their land. I mean, that they could just come in, even though have to say that it was during a time when Britain was going throughout the planet and taking land and fighting off the inhabitants of different countries and taking the lands, like the Pilgrims and all of those different things. And so I have to say, I don't know what their thought process was at this point, but they would have had to have been, by the definition of the word immigrant, they were the immigrants in this land and not so much taking over the land. But, excuse me, powering up there. So, the idea that America is a nation of immigrants is thus embedded right in the Constitution, meaning that they, maybe to offset their arrogance of coming in and just taking over the land and setting up their own government system and fighting off the natives, let's put it that way, rather than use the word Indians, because these were natives. They set up the power to process the rule of naturalization. In other words, when you come to this country from wherever you're coming from, we will put together that process so that you can say you are from this country. And so, anyway, more notes on this. Acts of Congress define the requirements by which immigrants can become citizens. Only the federal government, not the states, can determine who becomes a citizen. This is now for the basic eligibility to become a naturalized U.S. citizen, you must first spend at least 5 years as a legal permanent resident of the United States. Now, this is as of today. This is not set in the Constitution. This is not something that was written in there. I have no idea what their idea of immigrating people into their already well-established country of the United States, the 13 colonies. I do not know what that their idea of what to have people understand what they need to do to be naturalized. But for today, you must spend at least 5 years as a legal permanent resident of the United States, during which you did not take any trips abroad for more than 6 months, and were present in the United States for not less than half of the entire period, which is 2.5 years. Of course, half of 5 years. 5 years is a legal permanent resident. Or you can be married to a U.S. citizen, which may affect the eligibility for citizenship. Now, I'm going to give you the biggest issue of today is that of people coming across the Mexican-United States border. And that is, when you look up immigrants or naturalization or anything like that, that really is the number one issue in the United States today. And of course, most of us know that they have built walls on that border, and they are in the process of building more walls. I watched a documentary created by USA Today about the border wall. I'm going to put a link in here for you to go check this out. Now that's specific to that. Here's another link. If you'll just go to either one of these, it'll get you to where you want to go. It has got, this was like a 2-hour documentary, and USA Today won a Nobel Peace Prize for this documentary. And I have to agree with that Nobel Peace Prize, because this was one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen. They literally start from the Atlantic Ocean point where the wall starts, or a part of the wall anyway, and they take drones and airplanes across all the way from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, following the border and following this wall, either set up or not set up. There's a lot of land, miles and miles and miles of land that don't have a border wall. And yet there are a lot of miles of land that have different kinds of border walls. It's so amazing to watch this documentary where the wall will just end and it's wide open. It's like, well, why did you even put a wall there? All you got to do is come up to this point and just walk around the end of it. There's no more wall there until it starts up again, and it's wide open. And it's like, it's not like you can't just walk right around the end of the wall on both ends, the start point and the end point. It's interesting. It's a very good documentary. It's worthy of the Nobel Peace Prize. I was quite amazed by all the effort put into putting this together, and I learned a tremendous amount by watching this documentary. So I hope you can find it. I hope it's there for you, and I wouldn't even mind having a copy of it because it's so good. But there you go. If you can find that, there's your links in the chat right there. And so there you go. You have Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4A and 4B. I reversed them so that we could follow through. And so that's all I've got for you this week. Sorry we didn't have more input from other people. Abigail was having trouble with her sound, and Sherry, they're still working on her internet and electricity and that type of thing. And so I really appreciate your coming in and watching this. I hope you learned something. I hope I'm not too scattered for you. I'm kind of a scattered teacher. I jump from point to point sometimes. So if you like this, of course, be sure and share it. And if you're watching from the archives, there are a lot more before this. You might want to go check out, maybe binge watch them sometime. I think they're pretty good. All the archives of the Constitution, Contemplating the Constitution. And so I appreciate y'all watching. And next week we will jump into Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5. The Congress shall have the power to coin money. Oh, look at this. Somebody calling me. I'll have to call you back. I'm doing a show right now. Thank you. And so I forgot to turn my ringer off. Hey, I'm almost done with the show too. So, all right. God bless everybody. And we will see you next week. Clause 5. So, have a great week. Shavua Tov. Study Torah. Talk to God, and we'll talk to God, and we'll talk to you next week. Got to go. Susan's here. Have a great week.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hugi, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
I, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, do solemnly swear.
I, Dwight D. Eisenhower, do solemnly swear.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States. So help me God.